Diabetes Connections is brought to you by OneDrop, created for people with diabetes by people who have diabetes. By Real Good Foods, real food you feel good about eating. And by Dexcom. Take control of your diabetes and live life to the fullest with Dexcom.
This is Diabetes Connections with Stacey Simms.
This week, in depth with a teenager who lives with type 1. Okay, it's my son, Benny. We covered a lot of ground here answering your questions, including what does he tell his teammates when they travel for sports and stay overnight?
I tell them the nasal spray thing.
The Baqsimi.
Yeah, if I don't wake up or if I pass out, do that and then go get coach.
We talk about feeling self-conscious about diabetes gear, what he remembers about being a little kid with type 1, and his feelings about the new Control IQ system. I think this interview was a good idea. In Tell Me Something Good, graduation news, 2 popular diabetes books get updates, and more. This podcast is not intended as medical advice. If you have those kinds of questions, please contact your healthcare provider. Welcome to another week of Diabetes Connections. I am so glad to have you along. We aim to educate and inspire about type 1 diabetes by sharing stories of connection. If you are new, welcome. My name is Stacey Simms. I am your host. My son, Benny, who you will hear this week, was diagnosed right before he turned 2. He is now 15. My husband lives with type 2 diabetes. I don't have diabetes at all, but I have a background in broadcasting and local radio and television, and that is how you get the podcast. Before we get to Benny, and oh my goodness, like I've already said, I'm hoping this was a good idea. I think he has good information to share. It's a little odd to interview your own son. But before we get to him, I have some great news of my own to share. The World's Worst Diabetes Mom, my book that's been out for a couple of weeks now, won an award. My publisher sent me an email, and by now I've probably shared it over social media as you're listening to this. Spark Publications announces that The World's Worst Diabetes Mom has won an award of distinction as part of the 2020 Communicator Awards. This is part of the Academy of Interactive and Visual Arts. I'm really excited about this, of course. It's not just about the writing, but about the design of the book, and we worked really carefully on that. The cover alone, we went back and forth quite a bit, but then inside to make it really easy to read and a nice experience. I mean, oh my goodness, who knew so much went into things like this? I mean, when you think about it for more than a minute, you get it, but wow. If you've ever been involved in any kind of book publishing, there's a lot of steps to it. So it was very exciting to see all of our hard work rewarded with this award. So thanks for indulging me and letting me talk about it a little bit. The book has really been an incredible experience for me. And I hope if you've read it, you've enjoyed it. I hope if you haven't read it, you'll consider giving it a chance. You can always learn more, of course, at the website diabetes-connections.com. But the book is for sale on Amazon, paperback, ebook, Kindle, and audiobook, which I narrate. And if you're listening to this episode as it first airs on Tuesday, the 26th of May, then tomorrow night, I'm actually doing a World's Worst Diabetes Mom event with JDRF. A couple of the Southeast chapters got together. We're doing a Zoom presentation all about it, sharing our mistakes and mishaps, what we learned from them, and why they're just the best way to go, right? You got to make all the mistakes when it comes to diabetes or parenting in general. And I'll put more information about that in the Facebook group and on social media. I'd love to have you join us. All right, my conversation with Benny in just a moment. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by OneDrop. Getting diabetes supplies is a pain. Not only the ordering and the picking up, but also the arguing with insurance about what they say you need and what you really need. Make it easy with OneDrop. They offer personalized test strip plans, plus you get a Bluetooth glucose meter, test strips, lancets, and your very own certified diabetes coach. Subscribe today to get test strips for less than $20 a month, delivered right to your door. No prescriptions or copays required. One less thing to worry about. Not that surprising when you learn that the founder of OneDrop lives with type 1. They get it. OneDrop, gorgeous gear, supplies delivered to your door, 24/7 access to your certified diabetes coach. Learn more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the OneDrop logo. My guest this week was pretty easy to book because I know his schedule. He lives in my house. He is my 15-year-old son, Benny. And if you've listened to the show for a long time, you know I really try to balance how much I share about Benny's experience with type 1. It's a balance of, not oversharing to compromise his privacy, but also sharing enough to help people. He's always been a really good sport about it, and we've really weighed and measured over his entire life, because he was diagnosed at 23 months, how much to talk about him. I mean, even really before that, because I was on the radio when he was born. I mean, both of my kids, I was a local TV reporter when I was pregnant with Leah, my daughter, and I was in radio. I was at WBT, where I worked for a decade doing the morning show there. I think I was there for a year before I got pregnant with Benny. And so my listeners went through that process with me. They saw me out at events, and it was a whole big deal about, how much are we going to talk about? How much are we going to share? And when he was diagnosed with type 1 and my listeners wanted to learn more, we had to go through it all over again. So I err on the side of sharing less, which may strike you as bananas, because I just talked about my book where we talk about all our stories and our family stuff. But I really do. I mean, if you look at a lot of the mom bloggers out there, and especially the Instagram people, I really don't share our day to day. I don't think that's fair to him. And I'm saying all this, I'm sorry for the big lead up, because it's hard for me to interview Benny. It's hard for me to kind of push and probe for more. He's funny, as always. He gives great information, I think. Of course, he is 15 years old. So a couple of quick notes to that 15 years old and really goofing around on the microphone. There's probably more editing than usual in this episode, so please forgive us if parts of it sound a little choppy, although I'm sure my editor, John Buchanan, has smoothed most of that out. But really, there were times where we were goofing around so much I had to cut it out. There's a little bit at the end to give you a taste of that, and I mean the very end of the show. I included, it's not really a blooper, but it's just, oh my God, what he was doing with the microphone. Also, he does say, this is the only correction I'll make. We talk about control IQ, and he says he's in range 80% of the time. I wish. It's still excellent. It's closer to 70% of the time, which is wonderful. And it's certainly a lot less work. And we talk about that a little bit too. But I have to correct that. He is not in range 80% of the time. And the only other thing is, listening back to this, I don't want anybody to misunderstand. We are mean to each other. I mean, I call him a couple of mean names. It's just our relationship. I mean, it's kind of the way we pick on each other. If you don't know us too well, I'm just a little worried that you might think we're really mean to each other. I think you can hear that it's all in good fun. We are so fortunate to have a great relationship. But it had been a while since I had him on the show, and you all had a bunch of questions for him. So I asked, he answered. Here's my conversation with Benny. So how are you holding up?
I'm good.
All right. Well, we got lots of questions for you.
I'm scared.
From listeners and the Facebook group. You started on Control IQ at the end of January.
Uh-huh.
And we're well past 3 months now.
Yes.
Any perspective? Any comments? What do you think?
Very good. No, it's much better than it was before, because I'm in range like 80% of the day.
Yeah, it's wild. What have you noticed in terms of me? I'm curious if
you're much more naggy. Like, is it working? Is it working? Is it working?
No, I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
Any tips or tricks? You don't bolus when you're on the higher side, right? Because we found that kind of plummets you.
Yeah. Don't do Traceba and Control IQ. It won't bring you up from lows.
But you still do Traceba and Control IQ.
Because I like juice.
Because you like juice? Is
that
what you said? You're an idiot.
What?
All right. So you use Control IQ.
Mm-hmm.
And you still take a daily shot of Traceba, even though your insulin needs have gone way down.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you continue doing the Traceba?
I don't know.
Well, your mother mentioned you might want to stop, and you said no. I thought maybe you had a reason.
Less insulin usage.
You mean like in the pump? You don't want to change the cartridge? Yeah. You should try it. You're
Fine.
not really using that much less. Well, now we have to talk to the endo again. And
okay.
What'd you think of the telehealth visit that we did, by the way?
That was rough.
What was rough about it?
You guys couldn't find any.
Oh, yeah, we had a problem. We were his first one, and he didn't have clarity, and he didn't have T-Connect up, even though the office said that they did, so it was a little weird. But were you okay with just talking to him that way?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's better in person.
Yeah.
Because our endo's a pretty cool guy.
Let's get to the questions. In the Facebook group, Rodney Miller.
Hi, Rodney.
Who runs Bolus and Barbells. He said, why am I Benny's favorite strongman diabetic?
I'm my favorite strongman diabetic, actually, for your information, because I'm the best.
Oh, you're the favorite strongman? Oh, all right. Well, we'll see you guys in competition maybe next year.
I think I'd win. Arm wrestling contest, I don't know, man. My biceps are massive.
Friends for Life 2021 showdown. Rodney and Betty. Okay, Rodney says, does Benny feel like having such a strong advocate for a mom has provided him unique opportunities to connect to the diabetic community?
Yes. Would have never met Rodney, Ernie, almost got the chance to meet The Rock.
Oh, yeah.
Was very close to that. Breck Bassinger. Those people are pretty cool. Friends for Life is a lot of fun. Justin Thomas, Jeffrey, those guys are pretty cool too. Don't think I would have really met them without Mom. No one's putting us in trials, so there's that.
Isn't that funny though? We can't get you into a clinical trial.
Yeah, I think it's obvious that they know we're just too cool, and they don't want to risk something not working on people that are just so awesome.
Well, we'll keep trying. All right, Shelby wanted to know, when you were younger, what did you say when other kids asked about your pump or CGM? How did you handle the curiosity of other kids?
I said I'm a robot. I still say I'm a robot. And then I actually explain it. I remember one time a girl just went, "What's this?" and ripped out my pump.
Wow.
That was fun. I don't really remember anything besides that.
I remember when you were, and this might be the same story, when you were in preschool, they told me that you were all kind of like lining up to go to the bathroom or something. And the kid behind you said, "Hey, what's that?" and started to pull on it. And you turned around and you were like 3. And you were like, "That's my diabetes." And you were very straightforward, like, "Don't mess around with that. Don't touch that. That's mine." Or I guess it would have been like, "That's my diabetes." You were like a little kid. But we were very lucky because you were always very straightforward about it, very open about it. And you never have seemed to mind it.
Well, yeah, no, I don't care. Like, if you don't like me because I have diabetes, go away. You suck. Bye.
God.
What am I going to say? Like, oh no, darn.
Well, you're not self-conscious about it, which I think is wonderful and made it easier for us. But I don't know how you teach that to somebody, right? You just have always been that way.
Yeah, I just kind of like, I need it. Don't touch it.
So I guess the answer is you've been very straightforward about it. Little humor, but mostly not hiding it and saying, "Here it is."
Sometimes I trick my friends into thinking they're giving me insulin. I disconnect my pump and I give them the pump and they still think it's connected. And they go, "Can I kill you?" And I say yes. And then I let them give me like 6 units and they think that I'm going to die. And it's really funny.
Why would you tell me that?
Because it's funny.
What? That is terrible. Now your pump's all messed up, especially with Control IQ. It thinks you're getting.
I don't do it that much anymore.
Okay,
do it like once every other month.
This was more like a 5th grade thing.
Yeah.
Please tell me you don't do that anymore.
I do it like once, maybe. I did it once with Jackson.
I'm going to kill you. Okay, let's see. D writes, as a teen athlete, what are your best tips to manage on your own during a sports event or overnight sports trips? We had a lot of those this year.
Well, yeah, but I wasn't competing.
I know, which is why it was very easy for me to let you go.
I don't think it's very smart to be on your own with anything sports. You should have at least one person with you that knows what's going on, just in case. But like, if you are alone, which is, again, not smart.
She means on your own without your mom or dad. Because a teenager on a trip is not going to be, like, the coach is going to be there, the team is going to be there. So why don't you talk a little bit about what you told the kids?
When I first joined the team, coach made us all sit down and made me tell everyone what was up. Basically, all I told them was, I have diabetes. It sucks. If I faint, there's a thing in the pouch that you stick up my nose, or you just go tell coach or the athletic trainer. Don't let me die. Well,
and when you go on overnights, you're not alone in the room, but there's not an adult anymore.
No.
So what do you tell the kids that are in the room with you?
I tell them the thing, like the nasal spray thing. So like,
Baqsimi.
Yeah, if I don't wake up or if I pass out, do that and then go get coach.
What do they say? Are they like...
They're like, okay.
Yeah, they don't... Nobody seems freaked out.
No. I mean, a bunch of them are scared of needles and it's fun to mess around with them, but...
And I do send you, you have a kit. We make sure that there's lots of food and drinks and all that stuff. And you have your snacks and your Welch's fruit snacks.
Welch's fruit.
That's one thing that made it easier in a way last year is you weren't competing because you had your knee injury. Yeah. So I wasn't too worried about the ups and downs. This coming year, assuming all goes well and you wrestle again, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to do for those first couple of overnights.
I don't know.
Well, you said it like I was going to ask you what to do. I'm not. I'm either going to come near and stay nearby.
No, Dad. If anyone's coming, it is Dad.
That's a great idea. Your father can go. I don't think I would, I'm not going to make you stay in the hotel room with me. You can still stay with your friends. But especially with wrestling, until we kind of figure out what your body's doing, I think it's really important to get a baseline and then get some protocols and figure it out from there. But I don't intend to sit on you. Don't worry. I like this one. Kristen says, is it true that Benny has the best mom ever?
No.
You're off the show.
No one has the best mom ever. It's literally not possible. There's like a couple billion moms.
Mother's Day is just passed, but that was a missed opportunity, my friend.
I mean, she's pretty good, but not the best.
Missed opportunity. Best you ever had? Okay. Right back to our conversation. And the next question is going to be advice. What would Benny tell his younger self? We'll get to that in just a minute. First, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Real Good Foods. And on their website, they have real reviews from real people, which makes sense because, this is all about real food you feel real good about eating. And what's nice is with the recommendations, you can see it's not just people who eat super low carb or who eat keto. There are people who have celiac, who can't eat grain. There are people who just love the way the food tastes, right? There are people who talk about the air fryer, which is a great way to make so much of their food. It is delicious. We are big fans of their, they can't put this in the air fryer. We're big fans of their new ice cream. And we really love the cauliflower crust pizzas as well, which do really well in the air fryer. Find out more. Just go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Real Good Foods logo. Now back to my talk with Benny, asking him your questions. Mary says, what advice would Benny tell a younger version of himself about being a teenager with diabetes? So I guess she means, what would you say to yourself back then?
Keep doing what you're doing. You'll be fine.
I think that's some excellent advice.
Yeah, I was a pretty good child. Okay, the question's like, I had depression. No, I was the best.
I think the only advice that you should give your younger self is, if you take your pump off to play football in the neighborhood, you might want to put it someplace smart, like a mailbox.
Okay, just because I lost it a couple times.
Doorstep.
Just because I lost it a couple times doesn't mean you have to bring it up again.
We always found it.
Yeah, I'm pretty good.
You're pretty good. Yeah, your mother had to go help you. Your mother was the best.
No.
Laura says, does he have any good one-liners when people ask about his tech?
I'm a cyborg.
You have said that.
And people believe me, and it's really funny.
Okay, so here's an example. We'll go to someplace brand new, and you make friends everywhere you go. Which
I'm amazing.
I'm kind of jealous of that. So we'll go to the beach.
Just wear a smile.
What'd you say?
Just wear a smile.
Just wear a smile.
Doesn't have to be real. Just wear a smile.
We'll go to the beach, and you'll make friends, but you have your shirt off, your Dexcom with the big stay put thing on, either on your arm or your stomach. Do people ask about that? Do they
I tell them I'm a cyborg. I'm so serious.
And then do you kind of go into any more detail?
Not if they don't ask.
They just leave it at that.
Most of the time, they just leave it at that.
That's funny. Okay, so the next couple of questions came from a different Facebook group. So while I know a lot of people in the podcast group, these came from a different a group of moms with elementary school age children. I'm saying this just enough for as much for the listeners as I am for you, smart aleck. Has Benny ever been bullied over having diabetes?
No.
All right, well, let's talk about that.
No.
Okay.
Unless I don't remember.
No. Let's talk about why you think you haven't been bullied about diabetes or picked on. I think part of that is because you were always a bigger kid. Right? So nobody was...
Fat man.
No, that's not what I meant. As you listen, I've been trying to edit out that I'm saying that, and he keeps saying it. So now we just have to leave it in.
What?
But you were a bigger kid, and you were a nice and fun kid. So nobody ever picked on you for much of anything. Right? I mean, I think the only time that we were in a, quote, bullying situation was when you were in like 5th grade and a little kid...
That was so funny.
Tried to pick on you. And it was like poking the bear with a stick. Luckily you didn't take the bait. But I think one of the reasons why nobody picked on you is because nobody picked on you anyway. But also you were so upfront about it.
Yeah.
That what are they going to pick on you about?
Haha, your pancreas doesn't work. What a nerd.
Right. Well,
Loser.
but you were always there first to tell people about it and to explain. And
I was also like the most popular kid in my elementary school. So there's that too.
Modest too.
Am I wrong? No. I remember explicitly there was a time where we were in the gym and I was running around giving everybody high fives and they were all chanting my name.
Well, I don't want to burst your bubble.
It was 5th grade.
Well, yeah, but it was also at like a JDRF event.
No, that was at school.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I thought it was going to be at like one of the Beam Team.
No, that was Beam Team at school.
Right, but I'm saying it was a purpose.
Yeah, but I'm...
Okay. But that's a perfect example of how a diabetes thing made you feel great.
Yes.
And it's hard because I think some kids don't embrace it naturally, which I understand. Everybody's personality is different.
I don't understand it.
Well, you will when you grow up. But like, your sister has a completely different personality. She's very introverted. She would not have enjoyed that. And I think she wouldn't have had the same experience you did. So as I'm talking, as you're listening, I'm not talking to Benny right now, as you're listening, I think it's harder for kids who are shyer. And I don't have that kind of advice so much because Benny's not that way.
Because I'm the best.
Well, you think you're the best. And as I said, and modest too.
Rude.
But I think it's okay if your kid isn't out there saying, I'm a cyborg and yay diabetes. And you never said yay diabetes.
I don't think I ever said yay diabetes.
Let's rephrase yay Beam Team and JDRF and all that kind of good stuff when you were younger. I think it's okay if that doesn't happen. But I think that can also, the more you keep it into yourself, the harder it can be when other people ask about it. And I think that can kind of lend itself to some difficult situations. Let's put it that way.
The lesson from all this, tell everyone you have diabetes so you can't get bullied.
Well, I think it helps to be upfront about it, but it's not the
My
only
lesson's
solution.
better.
Your lesson's better. Also, be a big dude. Always have a smile on your face.
Man.
I hate that you're saying that. I'm talking about when you were like 6 or 7 years old.
I was still chunky. I was cute though.
Hey, let's talk for a second because you're bringing it up. Let's talk about your weight loss.
I've lost 50 pounds since the summer.
50 pounds?
Mm-hmm.
Which is bananas.
I plan on keep going.
Okay, that's fine. But can you talk about how you've done it a little bit? Only because as your mother, I was really worried when you started. Our dog is going crazy. I was really worried when you started because between diabetes and just body image and eating disorders and all this stuff, I was really concerned. But you seem to have done it in a really great way.
I'm going to be so honest. I have absolutely no idea how to describe what I did. I ate when I was hungry, but just enough. And then I drank a lot of water and Gatorade.
I can also chime in on just a little bit of what I observed because I was, I was making sure you were eating.
Yeah.
I was worried.
Yeah.
You seem to have really just cut out empty calorie snacking.
Yeah.
We never had a lot of junk food in the house, but, no crackers or, or things like that. And you stopped eating dessert. But not all the time, right? You do have dessert sometimes, but you really stopped eating when you're on the computer.
Yeah.
Because I think our house helped too. Now we didn't move until the beginning of March, so you were already losing weight. The reason I bring up the new house is because in the old house, the playroom where you had your computer and stuff was right next to the kitchen.
Yeah.
So obviously it was really easy to snack.
Yeah.
But you had a lot of willpower and you stopped that. But then when we moved here, you have been away. The playroom is upstairs in the farthest corner of the house, which is great because we don't have to hear you screaming.
Apparently you still do.
I know, but when you play Xbox, you're so loud, and I don't really hear you until the whole house is quiet. Dude, just don't scream.
No, you don't understand. Screaming is part of the enjoyment.
But the point is, you've been able to have a lot of willpower, and also it's helped that you're farther away. But you eat dinner, you eat breakfast, you eat food. It's really been amazing to see. I would never have said you had 50 pounds to lose. So, to me, you look really thin. Are you okay, honey?
Still have 15 pounds to lose.
Yeah, well, we're going to talk about that off the air with wrestling. We'll see.
17, actually.
All right. The idea here is to be safe and be smart and get where you want to go without dangerous stuff. Yeah, okay, all right. I'm right. We're going to talk about that off the air. But, the other thing that comes with weight loss is, you're using a lot less insulin too, which has been really interesting to see. But you're doing great. Okay, and you need some new clothes.
Just an entire new wardrobe.
I mean, we can't go shopping because of the quarantine and stuff, so it's been wild.
Technically, quarantine's over.
I'm not taking you shopping.
Rude.
Yeah. Okay. This is an interesting question. Elaine says, when did he start total self-care? And then separately, waking to CGM alarms.
I don't wake up to CGM alarms.
Okay.
I wake up to my blood sugar.
Oh, I was going to say, it wasn't true because I know you treat overnight and stuff. So you feel that you wake up to your body.
Yeah, I've never once woke up to an alarm. I'm a deep sleeper. When?
I don't know because I'm not in your
Exactly.
face all the time, but it seems to me that I've seen you go low and I know you treat and then you go back up. So you're waking
I don't wake up to alarms.
You're waking up because your body has
Yes.
told you to. All right.
I've never woken up to an alarm.
I will, as the mom, I will let you say that. I'm going to slightly disagree.
It's false.
Tell me about what happens if you wake up and you're
I
feeling
wake
low.
up and I'm sweaty. And I'm like, this does not feel right. And then I stumble out of bed, and if there's low stuff in my room, I take it. And if not, I go downstairs and get juice and sit down there until my blood sugar goes back up.
Okay.
And then the dog comes visits me.
Oh, that's nice when the dog comes visits.
Comes visits.
That's nice when the dog comes to visit.
I said comes visits too. So
To answer the question here too, we still use Dexcom Share. We got the Dexcom when you were 9. We started Share 2 years later when it came out, but we spent the first 7 years of diabetes with no CGM.
that was scary.
It wasn't
I
scary.
don't know how we did it.
Why were you think that was scary?
No,
You don't remember,
I don't remember it.
Yeah. How did we do it? We did it, and it was a lot of blood sugar checks. We'll do a show on that sometime, or at least a discussion of like the olden days. But I'll tell you what, I never really remember being scared. Well, that's not true. There was one time when you were low and you would not come up. That's when I was scared. But I knew you were low.
Oh,
Well, it happened at home, and then you threw up, and you were fine. You just needed to throw up, and then we treated it, and you were great. I don't know what that was all about. What were you going to say?
so I had a counselor at CCT.
Diabetes camp.
Yeah, named Chris. And the entire week, his blood sugar was just like 60.
Oh, I remember that summer.
And he was not like a big dude. Like, he was a tiny, scrawny little dude. And he ate so much food. And his blood sugar just didn't go up.
Yeah, I remember you telling me about that. It's crazy. Maybe he needed to throw up.
No, but it was the entire week.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, I had never seen a person eat so much food. And his blood sugar just didn't go up.
But it didn't go down, right?
No,
like
it was just 60.
Yeah.
It was like 60 to 65 the entire week.
Well, the thing I was getting to with CGM is that I used to check you overnight when you were very little. Mm-hmm. And then as you got a little older, we would only check you overnight if we'd had a weird day. Like we just knew something was going on, or, you were very active. But I also went to work at 3:30 in the morning. So I would check you at 3 a.m. when I got up. It was kind of easy. In my head, that wasn't an overnight check because I was getting up to go to work. But obviously it was an overnight check. So when you got a CGM, and now that we have Share, you might not wake up to the alarms, but I do. So, with Control IQ and with our living situation with you upstairs here, I think I've treated one overnight low, and it was a compression low, right? You were laying on your CGM, and I came upstairs and
Compression lows are stupid.
yeah, and rolled you over and went from there. But to answer Elaine's question for real is he hasn't started total self-care.
No.
Well, I don't think it's appropriate. You're 15 years old and you're wonderful. You're independent. I could send you away for a week with anybody and you'd be fine. But in terms of real, true self-care, we're saving that.
I do that at camp.
You do that at Camp Coleman, right? But we're saving self-care really here at home until your senior year of high school to give you a year at least, maybe.
That's a junior year.
Well, Dad doesn't know what he's talking about. That's nice that he thinks that. What's that?
Really threw Dad under the bus there.
Yeah, well, that's what I do. We're thinking senior year. You're only a freshman. You're finishing your freshman year here, so we're still working on it. But I think senior year is good. And yeah, you do total self-care when you go to Camp Coleman, which is your regular month-long camp.
The stories I could tell about the nurses.
Well,
Some interesting ones.
there's a medical staff there, but not a diabetes staff. So,
There's a couple that are very good, though.
yes, that's a story for another
But
show.
no, she only has to stay for 2 weeks.
We love Karen.
Karen's the best. She's the only Karen I like.
No, that's mean. I don't like how Karen, my best friend growing up was a Karen. I don't like that Karen's kind of a weird name. All right. What were the most helpful accommodations for you at school, asks Heidi. I'm going to be very interested in what you say here.
Repeat.
What were the most helpful accommodations for you at school?
What was her name? Miss
Hyman?
Miss Hyman.
Yeah. Okay, so Miss Hyman was
Absolutely.
I guess the school called her a floater. She was a teaching assistant who in kindergarten would come in and help. She was like our elementary school always had a teacher and a teacher's assistant for kindergarten. But in first grade, they did not have that. Your first grade teacher, though, who was a take charge and take care of business lady.
Who was that again? Oh, Harrigan?
Miss Harrigan, yeah. She was like, we are not fooling around with this. We need more help. So she got permission to have Miss Hyman float in and out and help you with your blood sugar checks. And then by the end of first grade, there was another kid. And by the beginning of second grade, there were 4 kids in your elementary school. And Miss Hyman was like the diabetes lady. And she would just help. That's so nice that you remember that.
I remember like I was with her all the way to like 3rd grade.
Yeah. Well, she left the school. It wasn't
First grade to 3rd grade.
Yeah. And then you really didn't need that anymore.
And then the diabetic nurse.
Oh, Julie, who has diabetes. Yeah.
She was on the islet cell thing, right?
Yes, she had an islet cell transplant. She's been on the show before. So as you listen, she told all about her islet cell transplant. And yeah, she's a really interesting story. So I'll link that up in the show notes. You can go back and listen to that past episode.
Link in bio.
Link in bio, yeah.
Mom, do you have merch? We could plug the merch.
I don't have any merch yet. One of these days. I have my book. You want to say something nice about my book?
Link in bio.
It's not Instagram. It's audio. But I would say for accommodations, we had a very light 504 plan. And our 504 plan revolved almost all about testing because in our school district, unlike many school districts, we actually had a written out diabetes management plan. And every child with diabetes, whether you're on a pump or shots or whatever, you would have a DMMP, diabetes medical management plan. And you had to fill that out. So that was kind of like your 504.
I have a question about 504s. If like, let's say my 504 says I have to have my phone with me, right?
Yes.
And a teacher takes my phone.
Yes.
What do you do?
That's a great question. If you felt that your health was at immediate risk, I would excuse yourself and go to the administration office and call me. If you felt your test was at risk, I would take the test. And then upon completion, I would...
but like, does that teacher get in trouble? Like, what happens?
Oh, it depends on the school district. If it was and it depends on the parent. Okay, so let's say that happened to you and you were like, I took the test anyway. Okay, and you got a 95 on the test. Okay. I would go into school and I would call the school and I would say, hey, I understand there was a misunderstanding. Let's talk about it. Let's talk through it. And I would escalate. If she was great and said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. That's one thing. Yeah. If she says, that's outrageous, you couldn't possibly, then I escalate, right? We go to the next person, we go to the next person, we go to the next person. Let's say you take the test, you get a 65. I would lobby for that score to be thrown out and you could retake the test. We've never had to do that because everybody's been very cooperative and accommodating, but I'm all for fighting for you, but I wouldn't start out with a fight. Yeah. I would start out with hey, what happened? And go from there. But I don't think it's fair to make you totally advocate for yourself. I would hope you would.
I mean, if I knew something was wrong, I would leave the class. I'd be like, administration, something's wrong. Help me.
Right. Like if your blood sugar was high and they wouldn't let you see the nurse. Here's a really good example, and let's not name the teacher. You used to have migraines a lot.
Oh my God.
When you were growing up.
Don't get me started.
You had a teacher who didn't believe you.
Even after I threw up right in front of her.
Well, I think that was the action. I was going to say, what do you think you did that made her listen a little bit more?
Throw up right in front of her?
You threw up in the classroom right in front of her.
All over the books.
Now, if you were not in, what was that, fourth grade? Okay, so let's say you were a freshman in high school. Okay. You probably would have left the classroom and vomited in the bathroom and then gone to the nurse. But because you were in 4th grade and you were probably really nervous to leave or, there's all these things going on, it's really unfortunate that had to happen. But, it's good to talk about. But back to accommodations, because we had the diabetes medical management plan, which spelled out how diabetes was treated and also said things like, you have to leave the classroom, go to the bathroom, you're not limited to water, how much water you can drink, all that kind of stuff. That was laid out. Our school district, which is a huge one in the Charlotte area, is wonderful about that. So our 504 was all about how Benny's going to take tests. And we started it I had a 504 plan, but we never really used it because of the testing situation.
Still never used it.
Well, it didn't come. Yes, you do. It didn't come into play until 3rd grade.
Finals.
Right. End of grade. So in 3rd grade, we started kind of testing out different ways.
The BOG.
To take tests, the beginning of grade tests. So we decided for Benny, he wouldn't do anything differently, except he's allowed to have his phone with him. He doesn't need his phone right now, really, because your pump has everything on it. But you still take it in. I assume you lay it on the desk at the front of the classroom sometimes. You'll keep it in your pocket.
Well, so normal testing, like not finals and stuff, it's just in my pocket. The teachers are like, just don't cheat. But during end of grade, like finals and stuff, when like they like go and collect your phone, I just like, it depends on who's there. Sometimes it's just don't cheat, or sometimes I'll keep it at the front of the class, and if it buzzes, I'll tell you.
Yeah. I think for us, we're going to find out this year about accommodations for the ACT and the SAT and things like that. And that'll be an interesting thing to go through as well. If your child is diagnosed younger, this is really easy because you figure it out as they get older, right? And by the time they're in middle school, well, I think high school is when testing really starts counting, but I mean, it counts in middle school too. But by the time they're old enough to take these tests that really matter, you're understanding what they need, because some kids need a lot more accommodation than you do. Your blood sugar doesn't skyrocket because of test stress. We have friends who they walk into their final exam and their blood sugar goes to 300.
Really?
Yeah. But I think, right, in terms of the most important accommodation, I would say it's actually on the parent side, and that is being able to work with the school as a team. Being able to go into those meetings and say, I want to work as a team. I want to see how this goes. Like, let's work together, which sounds very kumbaya and woo woo, but it really helps. It helps me rather than going in and saying, I'm going to fight for my kids' rights. Like, there are a lot of situations, unfortunately, where you do have to fight, but going in without guns blazing is very helpful.
And our principal was cool.
Well, your elementary school principal he loved you.
I was his favorite.
I don't know.
He didn't name favorites, but I was his favorite.
He was fascinated with diabetes. He was really interesting. I mean, he wasn't fascinated in a weird way, but he admired the kids with type 1. He really did.
I was his favorite.
Well,
I mean, he didn't say it. But
he really admired what you guys were doing. It was interesting.
The counselor was cool too.
Yes, your school counselor was great. He was a good guy. He did our 504 plans. We would meet with him to go over the 504s, and he was very nice. That was a great school.
He was the guy that, like, if you got to go into his office, you were one of the cool kids.
We were very lucky to have a great elementary school. Okay, and has Benny...
Our principal had a lifted red Jeep. Like, how much cooler does it get than that?
I guess cool.
He was an elementary school principal.
Cool as the eye of the beholder. Has Benny had burnout? If so, when did he have it? How long did it last? And how did he deal with it?
Yes, ever yes.
So explain.
I don't want to do diabetes. This is too much work.
Do you get that often?
Yes.
And how do you deal with it?
Video games.
Do you just change the subject?
Yeah.
I find it interesting.
No, most of the time I just go, oh well, it is what it is.
Well, I find that interesting because I would not have said you've reached a lot of burnout. Like, I have my own opinions about that.
I'm able to shoulder shrug a lot of things.
Like, kind of compartmentalize?
I don't know what that means.
Like, put it in the back of your brain and move on with your life.
Yeah.
So what helps? You said play video games. Is that also like just you're with your friends?
Yeah.
Do you ever talk to people from camp or?
No.
Well, you mentioned Justin and Jeffrey early on. Is it like knowing that they're there even if you don't have to call them?
I mean, I guess, but like I've never been the kid that's like, life is terrible. I'm kind of just like, it is what it is.
All right, I have 2 examples that I want to bring up and see how you react. And we don't have to share these. Okay. I have 2 examples.
Okay.
The first is when you were about 10 and you wanted to take a pump break. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah.
What was going on? Like, can you share anything about that?
I don't know. I remember talking to Michael and like the pens just seemed a lot easier. But then I was like, wait, there's too much math.
Well, your pump break lasted about 3 days, but that's when you started.
Yeah, because I was like, wait, there's too much math.
Yeah, and that's when you started giving yourself your own injections. Because you had only we'd only used syringes, remember, before then.
Oh yeah, I remember when I was like 4.
And so to switch to an insulin pen seemed really scary to you, but you did it, which was awesome, and it's helped us a lot since then.
Yeah, there was too much math.
Yeah, and there's also too many shots, because you'd eat breakfast, then you'd get in the car and want an apple, and you'd be like, what? I have to do another shot? But then the other time, I wouldn't call it burnout, but we had, and I actually wrote about this in the book. You had a really bad night. You had a night where everything hurt. Your inset hurt. Your Dexcom hurt. I think you had to do them. You had to do them the same night.
That.
You had to do them both. And it was tough. You were really upset about it. And those things happen. I think it's important to acknowledge, even for a happy kid like you, that was a terrible night.
But tomorrow morning, I was fine. The next morning.
Tomorrow morning.
You know what?
Get it out of here. But really, do you mind? You don't have to share about it, but can you talk a little bit about it?
I remember one time, like, my inset didn't work like 3 times, and then my Dexcom didn't work like twice. I gave up, and I was like, I'll do it in the morning.
Yeah. That was the week that you actually met Rodney. The pan guy who we already mentioned him. He was the first question, ding-a-ling.
I love Rodney.
And Colt Scott, the American Ninja Warrior dude. So we met them a couple of nights later because we were out to dinner, and you didn't talk about the night that you were so upset. But I think
I don't remember what we talked about. All I remember is Rodney eating a lot, and it was really fun.
Yeah, right. Scott was eating barbecue
Scott
too.
was there too.
Yeah, it was nice.
A fun night.
Yeah, but I think that just helps to kind of breathe the same air as other people with diabetes. Even though you've had a crummy night, it helps to be with your people because your mommy is helpful, but only to a certain extent. All right. I don't know that you can answer this question, but this is one of the last ones. Okay. How did you realize, like, when did you realize you had diabetes? And how did you feel about it?
Yeah, no, I can't answer that.
Okay.
It's just, I've just always had it.
This mom says, I keep wondering for those who are diagnosed early, like my daughter, what the healthiest way of thinking about it is and how I can help with that.
It's life. What are you going to do?
Well, I think a non-15-year-old person answering that question, a parent might say, I think that there are ways of explaining it that change because there's different age-appropriate ways of talking about it. When Benny was teeny tiny, right after he was diagnosed, my parents got him a Curious George doll. We loved Curious George. And he was dressed as a doctor. Right. And we thought that he would do like imaginative play, right? Demonstrative play, right? Here, I'm going to give you. And he did not do that with the Curious George, but you did it with Elmo.
Oh,
you had
yeah.
an Elmo doll. And so Elmo got shots. Elmo had juice boxes. Elmo got insets.
Elmo loved juice boxes.
Right. Elmo loved juice boxes. And that's something that helps kids process that they have diabetes when they're very young. And as he got older, we would read stories. We would tell other people. We did a presentation for your class every year that changed as you got older. And then we started talking about age-appropriate stuff. So when you're talking about like independence, what has to be done? When you're talking about driving, what has to be done, right? Later, we'll talk about when you're living by yourself. Right. Well, think about it as a parent, how much freaking work it is.
It's fine. You guys have no responsibilities.
I'm going to touch on driving just a little because somebody did ask about that. You're doing really well with driving. But you want to talk about what you have to do before you drive?
I check my Dexcom.
And right.
That's it.
You check your blood sugar. If you're below 80, you can't drive. That's our simple rule. And we have to make sure there's stuff in the car. And I'll be honest with you, I'm going to make sure that you have low stuff in your car for the first year or two, because it's just like anything else. You have to learn, you have to get used to it, and then you'll be independent.
Yeah.
So with driving, that's I'm terrified, but not really because of diabetes. But you're a pretty good driver.
I'm the best.
And modest too.
I am modest, aren't I?
Yes.
Like, I'm really modest. I'm
All
the
right.
best.
And then do you have any diabetes goals in the next couple of years? Like, are there certain
No.
things? I hate you.
You're listening to Diabetes Connections with Stacey Simms.
See why I warned you about how mean we are to each other? I can't believe I said I hate you there at the end. Oh, although I got to say, oh my goodness, I am going to play a little bit more at the end of the show, the very end, so you can understand what I was putting up with for a lot of that interview and some of the stuff that we had to take out. But I hope some of that helped you. I'm also going to link up a few of our previous interviews with Benny. I've talked to him a couple of times on the show, and it's interesting. Not only has his voice changed a lot, as you can imagine, but just to hear how things have changed. I'll do that at the episode homepage. There is always a transcription. I have no idea what this transcription is going to look like the first time I run it through the computer. That's going to be fun. But we'll put that there as well. And update, interestingly, after this interview, he really did agree to stop taking the Tresiba. So for the first time in almost 2 years, we started the Tresiba in August of 2018. He is not taking a long-acting with his pump because his insulin needs have gone down so much, obviously with the weight loss, but also with puberty. He loves when I talk about that. And I'll keep you posted on how that's going. I'll tell you what, so far, when he's not eating, it is amazingly steady, just like it has been with Control IQ. It's maybe on average 10 to 15 points lower. So if he was running at like 110, he's now running at 85, that sort of thing. Because just that little bit more control of the algorithm is really helping, at least in the short run. But for the last 2 days, I swear that kid has forgotten to bolus for every single meal, everything he eats. I don't know what's going on, but I'm trying not to make a big deal about it. We're just going to move on. We're just going to remind. We're not going to nag. I'm sure he would say something different. All right. Well, anyway, I'll keep you posted on that. But he really is doing great. And I like that he comes on and talks about diabetes, even if it may not be what I want to hear or I want you to hear sometimes. Tell me something good in just a moment. But first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Dexcom. When Benny was very little and in the bathtub or at the pool, I always noticed his fingertips. I mean, you know exactly what I mean, right? When you've got diabetes and you're checking and checking and checking and poking, when your fingertips get wet, somebody in the community called it Frankenfingers. They were just full of little pinprick holes that you could really, really see. And, you know, he is 15. I don't see his hands too much, although I did peek when he was looking at the microphone and hanging out in the studio here. Studio. Well, it is a studio. It's my office. I noticed, and his endo looks at them every single time we go in, that they are just normal. They are not those Frankenfingers anymore. I mean, we've been using Dexcom for almost 6.5 years now. And with every new iteration, we have done fewer and fewer finger sticks. The G6 eliminates finger sticks for calibration and diabetes treatment decisions. Just thinking about doing 10 finger sticks a day, which is what we did in the past. I mean, that was pretty every day. Makes me so glad that the Dexcom has helped us come so far. It's an incredible tool. If your glucose alerts and readings from the G6 do not match symptoms or expectations, use a blood glucose meter to make diabetes treatment decisions. Learn more, go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Dexcom logo. In Tell Me Something Good this week, a quick book update, not my book, but some other terrific books in the diabetes community. And these are books that have been out for a while that are highly recommended, and we all pass them around to each other, but they're getting updates. And I think it's really important because, gosh, think about how much has changed just in the last couple of years. So the first one I want to tell you about is Understanding Diabetes. This is better known as the Pink Panther book. I still have no idea why the Pink Panther is involved in this. And it's the actual Pink Panther. I mean, they had to have gotten a trademark. I mean, if you've seen this book, you know what I'm thinking. This was the first thing I thought when they handed it to me in the hospital. Why is the Pink Panther affiliated here? But that's a mystery for another time, I suppose. Anyway, they're on the 13th edition, which you can get as a discount because the 14th edition is coming out this summer. This is put on by the Children's Diabetes Foundation. I will link this up in the show notes so that you can order a new book. Let your endo know as well if they're interested. And it does come in Spanish. It is also available in an ebook form, in a Kindle. So you can get them in lots of different ways. The Pink Panther books. The mystery continues, though, as to why that character. How do they get the trademark? Anyway, all right. The next book is Think Like a Pancreas, which is a must-have, in my opinion, practical guide to managing diabetes with insulin. Gary doesn't need my seal of approval here. He is already the #1 new release in nutrition and medical health sciences on Amazon. But I think this is really important because I recommend this book all the time. And this is the newest update for it. It's a paperback and an e-text book. And as the description says, the all-in-one comprehensive resource for the millions of people living with diabetes who use insulin. The updates here include, as you would expect, new medications, new technologies, injection devices, dietary recommendations. We've had Gary on the show many times. He describes himself as a human guinea pig because he lives with type 1 and he tries all of these devices. But he also talks about the science behind them in ways that I think is really clear. If you've listened to my interviews with Gary, you know I generally feel kind of like a goofball when I talk to him. He's very calming as well. If you haven't gotten this book before, highly recommend it. If you have and you're looking for the update, probably the e-text book is your best bet, and I will link that up in the show notes as well. And finally, and Tell Me Something Good, lots of graduations to celebrate. Of course, they're not the usual graduations. People got very creative with how to celebrate their kids this year, but I know a lot of you were hoping for bigger ceremonies and more tradition. I want to take a moment to highlight just one of the many valedictorians that were spotlighted in some of these Facebook groups that I saw. Jeremy Bright was valedictorian, and thank you so much to his parents for letting me share his story. Jeremy was diagnosed with type 1 at age 14, and he has a scholarship to Florida Polytechnic University to study computer science this fall. And once Jeremy's parents posted about him in this Facebook group, several other people chimed in with my T1D as a valedictorian as well. And, you know, they kind of went and listed a few other kids, didn't get permission to share their names and, you know, or their stories. And that's okay. But I think it's great that so many kids are at least getting the credit that they're due for working so hard through high school. I don't know about you guys, but it seems sometimes that for these kids, I know the workload on my daughter, high school was almost worse than college. Maybe it's just the pressure of, you know, they have to do so well. And I tried to ease that off for my daughter. But man, it is hard when all the high schools are telling them, you know, take this class, get this college credit, all these tests, ACT, SAT. Oh, all right. Just a little bit of editorial on my part. And we shall see, right, with all the wackiness that's happening this year with some colleges not, you know, counting the standardized tests. We'll see what happens going forward. But anyway, congratulations to these great kids. If you have a Tell Me Something Good story, please let me know. You can reach out Stacey at diabetes-connections.com, post in the Facebook group, you know, send a carrier pigeon, whatever it takes. I would love to feature your child or you in our Tell Me Something Good segment. Before I let you go, it's worth noting that we are right at the 5-year anniversary of the podcast. I had episode 300 a couple weeks ago. I made a bigger deal about that. The 5-year milestone is something I'm sure I'll mark on social media and talk about a little bit. But I'm bringing it up here because, well, first of all, I can't believe it's been 5 years. I can't believe that I'm still doing this. I didn't have a timeline in mind when I started the podcast, but I don't think I thought 5 years later I'd still be doing it and loving it as much as I do, and it would still be growing. But I bring it up because if you're listening to this point in the show, then you are a true listener, and I appreciate that. And I would urge you to please join the Facebook group, Diabetes Connections, the group. I'm going to be doing some polling in the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure what we're going to do with the podcast in 2021. And I know that's a little bit early to start thinking about it, but I plan for the next year. I mean, in terms of sponsors, let's be frank, I usually have all that sewn up by August or September. And I don't want to be in a situation where I decide to make some changes and then I'm scrambling at the end of the year. So I'm going to be asking questions like, frequency, length. What do you want to hear? I think after 5 years, it's time to take a tough look at this, a hard look at it, and decide what do we really want to do? Where are we going with this, right? And if it stays the same, fantastic. I love doing it. But if there's something that you would prefer to hear, maybe it's all technology news. Maybe we go once every 2 weeks, but we only do news updates, that sort of thing. Maybe you really like the personal stories and we stay with that. We do a mix. Maybe we make a longer show, a shorter show. There's lots of options, but I want to hear from you. So please watch for surveys over the next couple of weeks, but you got to be in that group. I'm not going to make these public. I don't want people who don't listen weighing in. I mean, come on. And I really can't thank you enough. 5 years later, to have as much fun as I'm having and to keep doing this and hearing from people who enjoy it, that's the best. Thank you, as always, to my editor, John Buchanan from Audio Editing Solutions, for making sense of this week's interview and everything else that he does. And thank you so much for listening. I'm Stacey Simms. I'll see you back here next week. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Simms Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.
You can take that to your room when we are done.
Here.
Disgusting. No, take it with you.
Why? I don't have a place to put it.
Or leave it over there because I'm going to throw it away.
Are you actually?
Well, why would I keep it? I take that to places with me. Be like, here, let me interview you with the microphone that's been inside my son's mouth. I think people would love that, especially in this day and age.